At 4:23 GMT, a thunderclap tore across the Gulf of Aden, and silence followed fire. An LPG tanker erupts in flames off Yemen's coast. A mystery blending sabotage suspicions, denials, and unanswered questions at sea, it began without warning. On the morning of October 18, 2025, radar operators across the Gulf of Aden logged a sudden flare, a single bright pulse on otherwise calm waters. Moments later, radio static cracked through maritime frequencies. A distress signal repeated one word: explosion. The vessel was identified as the MV Falcon, a Cameroon-flagged liquefied petroleum gas LPG tanker, fully loaded and en route from Oman to Djibouti. Somewhere between 60 and 113 nautical miles south of Yemen's coast, an unknown projectile, or something that looked like one, struck the ship's starboard side within seconds. Flames engulfed roughly 15% of the vessel's structure. Crew scrambled toward lifeboats as black smoke spiraled into the desert wind. From Aden, the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations, UKMTO, received the distress call and issued a navigational alert. Nearby ships were told to proceed with caution and to report any unusual maritime activity. For hours, the sea glowed orange. Satellite images later captured the burning outline of the Falcon drifting alone. Her engines silent, her signal-fading group claimed responsibility. And unlike other attacks in these waters, no warning, no threat, and no footage preceded it. Only the echo of something violent and unexplained. There were 26 crew members aboard the Falcon. 23 of them, all Indian nationals, survived. 2 remained missing. The sea and its indifference gave no clues to where they went. Rescue came from the European Union Naval Force, operating under Operation Aspide. Frigates diverted from patrols, and a nearby commercial vessel, the MV Meta, responded to the Falcon's mayday. Under the coordination of the Hellenic frigate HS Spetsai, survivors were pulled from lifeboats, their faces scorched with heat and disbelief. By dusk, the Meta, carrying the rescued crew, was steaming toward Djibouti. Those who made it out spoke of confusion, not panic. A flash, a blast, then fire. They never saw what hit them. Hours later, footage from a naval drone showed the Falcon still aflame, drifting slowly west. The water around her shimmered with a thin film of LPG residue, a toxic halo marking the site of the strike. For the families of the missing, no answers have yet surfaced. Only the knowledge that the Gulf of Aden, long a theater of tension, had claimed 2 more names in its ledger of silence. As the flames dimmed, the voices began. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations released its first statement within hours, restrained, factual, and cautious. They confirmed a possible projectile strike, but added that an onboard malfunction could not be ruled out. It was a sentence crafted to avoid blame and to buy time. From Sana'a, a spokesman for the Houthi Ministry of Defense, made an uncharacteristic declaration: "We are not involved." Their statement surprised many. For 2 years, Houthi forces had claimed, often proudly, responsibility for attacks across the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. But this time, they distanced themselves. Security analysts took note. The maritime intelligence firm Ambri stated that the Falcon did not match the Houthis' usual target profile. It had no known ties to Israel, the United States, or the United Kingdom. And crucially, this incident occurred during a pause in rebel operations following the fragile Gaza ceasefire. By nightfall, shipping advisories warned all vessels transiting the area to maintain vigilance. The Gulf of Aden, already tense, had turned uncertain once more, not from open warfare, but from the fear of what could not yet be named. When the fire finally subsided, the questions burned hotter than the wreck. Teams from UNIFOR Operation Aspides and UKMTO joined a private salvage contractor to begin the formal inquiry. Their mission: to determine whether the Falcon was struck from outside, by a missile, drone, or artillery shell, or from within, by a catastrophic failure of its volatile LPG cargo. Divers and forensic technicians examined the hull, searching for the clean puncture that defines a projectile impact. But the heat had distorted the metal, melting evidence into ambiguity. Infrared imaging suggested a single origin point, low on the starboard side, consistent with a strike. Yet internal ignition from leaking gas could create the same pattern. Science, for once, could not tell politics what it wanted to hear. Behind closed doors, the investigation became diplomatic. An external strike would implicate state or militia actors, reigniting tensions across the Red Sea corridor. Internal failure would mean embarrassment, not escalation. In maritime crises, truth is often negotiated before it's discovered. Weeks later, the Falcon was towed toward Djibouti for deeper analysis. Its blackened hull reflected the horizon like a warning, evidence that the sea, even now, hides more than it reveals. Officially, the Falcon was Cameroon flagged, though its real ownership traced back to India. It sailed under what maritime lawyers call a flag of convenience, a loophole that allows aging ships to hide behind lenient regulations and minimal oversight. Insurance records were equally murky. No major maritime underwriter claimed the Falcon, leaving open the question of who would pay or who might prefer silence. Its trading routes, winding through the Gulf nations and the Horn of Africa, hinted at commerce less than transparent. The declared route was Oman to Djibouti, yet its digital breadcrumbs suggested another destination entirely: Ras Isa, Yemen. That port, long under Houthi control, served as both a logistical hub and a political symbol. If confirmed, the Falcon's voyage was not routine commerce, but a supply run to a sanctioned militia. Martin Kelly, head of advisory at EOS Risk Group, voiced the suspicion aloud. He described the tanker as part of the so-called Ghost Armada, vessels identified by the watchdog group United Against Nuclear Iran, UANI, as covert traders moving Iranian energy through shadow roads. Ships that appear on maps only when convenient and disappear when questioned. The revelation shifted perception. If the Falcon was indeed carrying Iranian cargo, then it may have been targeted deliberately by those seeking to disrupt Tehran's supply chain, or mistakenly, by forces unaware of its complex allegiances. In sea politics, cargo often speaks louder than flags, and sometimes it's what a ship carries, not where it sails, that seals its fate. In the hours after the Falcon burned, speculation began spreading faster than the flames had. Every narrative pointed in a different direction, each one plausible and each one incomplete. The first theory, a Houthi misidentification. Analysts proposed that the rebels, whose targeting systems are often improvised, may have mistaken the Falcon for a Western-linked vessel. Their past operations used modified anti-ship missiles, often guided by outdated intelligence or poor radar signatures. If the strike was theirs, it would fit a pattern: imprecise, politically risky, and later denied to preserve diplomatic leverage during the Gaza ceasefire. The second theory, Israeli sabotage. Some experts quietly suggested the explosion bore hallmarks of covert maritime warfare, a small precision strike designed to cripple Iran's shadow fleet. Israel, long opposed to Tehran's covert shipping network, has used deniable tactics before: limpet mines, drone hits, electromagnetic interference. If the Falcon was indeed carrying Iranian LPG destined for Houthi forces, the motive would be clear: disrupt the supply chain without sparking open confrontation. And then, the most mundane, yet often most probable, accident scenario: old valves, corroded tanks, volatile cargo. A spark in the wrong chamber could easily mimic a missile strike. After all, the Falcon was 3 decades past her prime. But the truth is less about evidence and more about tension. Between Iran and Israel, the Houthis and Western navies, every incident becomes both a message and a warning. The sea, once a borderless expanse, has turned into a chessboard of unseen hands, each move silent, each misstep capable of war. The Falcon's destruction was not just an explosion, it was a reflection of a world where commerce, politics, and conflict now sail the same waters. To understand the Falcon, one must trace the wake of the Houthis. Since November 2023, the Iranian-backed group has waged a campaign against shipping across the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, a theater of rebellion turned into a maritime war zone. Over 100 attacks have been recorded in less than 2 years. Most targeted vessels are linked, directly or indirectly, to Israel, the United States, or the United Kingdom. Oil tankers, container ships, even humanitarian convoys. Then came September 29, 2025, when the Minerva Gracht, a Dutch-owned freighter, was struck in the same region. That attack was traced to Houthi forces and became the last confirmed assault before the Falcon incident 3 weeks later. As the Falcon drifted, global navies shifted course. The European Union Naval Force, UNIFOR, under Operation Aspides, took command of rescue and investigation efforts. Their frigates, already patrolling the corridor between Djibouti and Yemen, began mapping debris and securing the scene. Meanwhile, both NATO and the U.S. Fifth Fleet, operating from Bahrain, entered a monitoring posture. Radar coverage widened, patrol frequencies doubled. Shipping insurers reacted first. Within 24 hours, war risk premiums for vessels transiting the Gulf of Aden spiked. The Falcon became another marker in a long, invisible map of maritime insecurity, a reminder that the sea connecting continents can, at any moment, divide them. In the media storm that followed, truth dissolved into competing headlines. Some outlets led with "attack on tanker," others with "possible onboard explosion." The phrasing mattered, not just to readers, but to nations balancing alliances. Every word carried weight, shaping insurance policies, naval responses, and diplomatic tone. Social media filled the void of certainty. Clips claiming to show missile trails or drone strikes went viral, most later proven inconclusive or unrelated. Satellite photos circulated, annotated with arrows and theories. The internet, as always, mistook abundance for accuracy. Maritime analysts debated in forums. Was the Falcon part of Iran's covert export network? Was it carrying gas to Houthi-held ports in defiance of sanctions? Or was it simply an old ship at the wrong place, at the wrong time? Amid this noise, official statements became quieter. Governments preferred ambiguity to confrontation, and so the story fragmented, told differently in London, Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Sana'a. The Falcon became not just an event, but a mirror, reflecting how the same explosion could mean entirely different things, depending on who needed it to mean them. The Gulf of Aden and the narrow Bab al-Mandeb Strait are arteries of the global economy. Nearly 10% of the world's energy flow passes through these waters each year. Crude oil, LNG, LPG, and essential goods. When a single tanker catches fire, the ripples stretch far beyond the horizon. Charter rates rise, insurers recalculate, and shipping routes bend southward toward the longer, costlier path around the Cape of Good Hope. Each detour adds millions to global logistics, a quiet inflation born not in markets, but in fear. The Falcon's explosion reaffirmed what strategists have long warned. The sea remains the most vulnerable battlefield, where civilian infrastructure and military ambition intersect without warning. Unique in territorial wars, maritime crises are borderless. Their consequences are collective. Regional navies from India to France began discussing renewed joint patrols, yet every new coalition underscores the same paradox. No fleet is large enough to guard every wave. In the silence after the fire, one truth resurfaced. Security at sea is never permanent, only rented. One patrol, one treaty, one calm day at a time. The Falcon, in its ruin, became a reminder of how fragile the global bloodstream truly is. Weeks after the explosion, investigators compiled what little certainty they could. The location, Gulf of Aden, roughly 100 nautical miles off Yemen. Timeline, October 18, 2025 at dawn. The vessel, an aging LPG tanker, flagged to Cameroon but India owned the cargo. Iranian origin fuel likely bound for Yemen's northern coast. The crew, 26 aboard, 23 rescued, 2 missing. Everything else remains uncertain. The attacker's identity, unknown. The weapon or cause, unconfirmed. The motive, contested between accident, misfire, or deliberate sabotage. Experts emphasize that without physical fragments, satellite forensics, or missile telemetry, the case remains suspended in ambiguity. In maritime law, such incidents often drift unresolved, lost between insurance clauses, political caution, and classified intelligence. But beyond evidence lies symbolism. The Falcon stands now as a floating metaphor for the new face of conflict, where commerce and warfare merge without declaration, where nations strike without flags, and denial becomes diplomacy. At sea, even silence is political. The MV Falcon burns, drifts, and disappears, leaving questions that still refuse to sink. In the fog of proxy wars and covert trade, truth becomes the first casualty. Spark on these waters now feels deliberate, and every silence, a warning whispered across the tides of an unquiet sea.